Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode where we're going to be studying the Bible. We are still in Genesis, obviously, and we just started chapter 2 last week, I think, or was it 2 weeks ago? I forgot, JD. Well, we just started chapter 2, and we're still in chapter 2, and we're still on verse 1, and verse 1 says, "Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and the host of them." So JD, this is exciting. I wanted to share with you the actual immense size of galaxies.
Oh, okay.
And there's one behind me right now.
Yeah.
And what I did is I put a banana in there for reference to size. So if you can find it, then you can see exactly how big that galaxy is.
No, I can't even see anything that even slightly looks like a piece of fruit to me.
Okay,
No.
well, first you would have to find our sun and then the earth, and then zoom down to New York, and then you'll see the banana.
Okay. I give up.
Mhm.
Tell me where it is.
It's right there. See it? Sorry, I'm just lightening up the show because
I
this
know.
one's getting pretty
Yeah, I
serious
knew there was no hope in finding a banana out there. Okay, I knew that.
compared to the size of the galaxy. Galaxy Defenders. Okay.
All right.
But yeah, so the heavens and the earth were finished and all the host of them. And that's where we're going to go today, the host of them. And we're going to see in the stars how ridiculous it can actually be for someone to think that the stars just showed up on their own.
Yeah, for real.
So I wanted to start with even just there's so many things that you could just pick and choose. But today I want to start with the nebular hypothesis. You obviously know what that is, right?
No, I obviously don't.
I don't understand.
I know what a hypothesis, whatever that word is. I know what that word means, but the first part of that is like speaking Greek or something to me.
Well, I think it's Latin and is nebular, but see this thing here, it's a nebulous thing. So.
Yeah. Nebulous I've heard of, but you just tried to, you created a new word.
Well, you put them together and then it gets really confusing.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So, well, here's actually what the nebular hypothesis is. Okay. The short story in the easy way, because I like to explain things, is so this dude all of a sudden came up with this idea that the planets and everything were because the sun spit off some stuff and then they cooled off and became all the planets.
Okay. And what was he using in his drug of choice?
Probably meth. I'm not sure.
Yeah, have to be.
But there is some other conjecture on that as well. But that's a nebular hypothesis, and evolutionists will use this a lot. The problem is it's got a lot of problems to it.
Yeah.
Number one, they're all different. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So how could that possibly be? But let's do this. So here's what it was. This dude named Immanuel Kant. Okay, and I got my notes over here, so I'm looking over there because I got notes. Okay. So here's his quote. Some 4 billion years ago, again, you need a lot of time.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way to explain it. So that is where evolutionists are. Mm-hmm. So they say, well, there's no God. Well, yeah, they do have a God. Time created everything. Mm-hmm. So time is their God. Right. And it just happened all by itself. So basically nothing is their God. And then they're going to go back to nothing. They're going to go back to their God when they're done, back to nothing. Mm-hmm. So it's just a lot of nonsense. Anyway.
They're going to wish they were going back to nothing when they die.
Yeah. Hey, please annihilate me, they're going to say. And that's sad, but it's the truth. You exist. You will exist.
Yes, so you will.
We'll close up this half on that. You will exist.
Yes.
It's like real estate. It's all about location.
Right.
Where will you exist? So this dude writes, some 4 billion years ago, as if he knows, the sun had ejected a tail or a filament of material that cooled and collected and thus formed the planets. That is from his book, General History of Nature and Theory of the Heavens, and it was written in 1755.
Oh boy.
Okay. So that's where he got that. But here's the thing. A little bit earlier than that, there was another dude named Emanuel Swedenborg. Okay. And he wrote his Latin thing, more Latin things, in 1734. So Swedenborg kind of had this idea from the beginning, and then Immanuel Kant kind of stole it from him. Didn't really check it out.
Yeah.
So Swedenborg was here. Check this out. He was a mining engineer with a wide range of interests who also claimed to have psychic powers.
Oh boy.
Oh, okay. He claimed confirmation of his nebular hypothesis from seances with men on Jupiter, Saturn, and places even more distant. And even before that, 20 years earlier than this, when he was 24 years old, he met with Edmund Halley of Cambridge. Okay. So now, you know, Halley's Comet and stuff. So now he's talking with Halley, and he comes up with this hypothesis, which he got from people that live on Jupiter.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and Saturn of all places. I mean, who wants to buy a place on Saturn?
Well, I mean, when you are that far back in time, yeah. I can, he can make up anything he wants to because nobody can check out Diddley Squat way back then, right?
Yeah. And I guess he didn't understand that Jupiter is gas. And you can't live on it.
Yeah, I had no idea. I mean, that didn't fall into the makeup session right there.
But here he is. He's got this nebular hypothesis, and it was confirmed by the men on Jupiter. So that right there should give you a clue. It's probably not right.
Right. That ought to be a big hint. Yeah.
So there was another guy who actually kind of confirmed him. But he was in mathematics, a guy named Pierre Simon Laplace.
Well, at least it's not another Emmanuel like the first two guys.
Yeah. Right. So now here's the deal. He was actually kind of a scientist, and he should have known better, but he thought Immanuel Kant was cool, so he just went with it without actually checking the facts. But that's what we're going to do today. We're going to check it. Okay, that's what you say. Let's go look at it.
Okay.
Right? Because you know us, we don't automatically poo-poo things. Then we would have the Dunning-Kruger effect. You got to go check it out and see. And you may ask yourself, what did he just say? Okay.
Well, I just know, David, that, I mean, I know you're going to get into explanations today, and that's great. But for people that are still hung up on evolution and all that, how in the world do they explain, like, how come flies never evolved? How come wasps never evolved? Bees sort of did, but they did because they were messed with science. I'm talking about
how'd they get here to begin with?
Yeah. I mean, it makes no sense. This evolutionary BS is just that, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, I'm listening to the explanation today. Go ahead.
You're old like me. Remember the show Soap?
Yes.
And the goofy guy, the big goofy guy, and he would just go like this. You can't see me. This is what they do.
Right.
Anyway, the Dunning-Kruger effect is thus, okay? It's a cognitive bias where people with little expertise or ability assume that they have superior expertise or ability.
Sounds like
this overestimation occurs as a result of the fact that they don't have enough knowledge to even know that they don't have enough knowledge.
That sounds like Biden.
Yeah. It's the same old adage. You don't know what you don't know. But since you don't know, you think you're right.
Right.
So, and that happens. It happens a lot with flurfs. Flurfs really big, but even these people, they just don't know enough. And all these people that are really pushing the evolution theory, and these professors, they just don't get it.
No,
but they don't want to get it. Yeah, they don't want to, and they don't know enough to know that they really don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
So that's why you get this cognitive dissonance, and that's why you get all the dichotomy of thoughts, and they're like, every time you come up with something, they just, instead of actually examining it what they'll do is just try and find a reason to ridicule you. They'll set up a
Right.
straw man argument, and that, well, you did this, and that's wrong. It's like, well, I never did that. Yeah.
Right.
And try and just dismiss you and change the subject and misdirect you. Deflect is another word. All right, so he didn't check it out, but here's the problem. If in fact that was the case, you would have to just the physics of it, just physics alone, you'd have to assume that everything would be the same. So if I got a spinning ball here, right, and then stuff spins off of it, wouldn't it all have the same spin?
It would seem so, yeah.
Yeah, because it's called momentum.
Right.
It's the laws of physics.
Right.
So there's a problem. Okay, the sun literally has 99.86% of the mass of our solar system. You realize that?
No, I didn't. That's huge.
99.86% of the mass of our solar system. You know what that means? That means 0.14% are the planets.
Wow. What's the percentage for Earth? Like nothing?
Yeah, just about.
Yeah.
It's not nothing, but you can see nothing from
right.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. It's got 99.86% of the mass. However, it only has 1.9% of the angular momentum. That's the spin. So if you see it, it's going like this, really slow.
Really, really slow. Okay.
Compared to the planets which are moving around.
Right.
Well, you don't have enough momentum. How did that happen? Okay. And the problem is, you know ice skaters, right? When they put their arms out, they go slower, right?
Right.
Then they bring their arms in and they spin really fast.
Spin really fast, yeah.
Yeah. So that just heightens the problem here, because if the sun should be actually spinning faster than all the planets.
Yeah.
With the same momentum, but indeed, it's only 1.9%. So that means
on top of that, I mean, if it's spinning that slow, it's sure not going to throw anything very far, is it?
Exactly. Let alone spit it out and spin around.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I try and we could talk all these really cool, scientific terms. I'm trying to explain it so people can understand. The sun is spinning really slow. There's no way it shot the planets out to spin around.
Right.
And even if it did, the planets would be spinning slower and the sun would be spinning faster. Yeah. Just like the ice skaters, when they put their arms out, they go slow and they pull them in and they spin around and get all dizzy. I don't know how they do that. But anyway.
Well, another thing, I don't know if you ever thought about this or not, but if the sun had thrown those things out, it wouldn't have been very far, right? Mm-hmm. So wouldn't they have burned up at some point?
Yeah, completely? It wouldn't have coagulated. And then we find that the sun is mostly plasma. So where'd all this solid stuff come from?
Yeah, okay. That's just something that hit my mind. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. It would have been, and actually to even go further on that point, even if that's the case, all the bigger planets would have been closer, and it would have been the smaller ones that are out. But we see the smaller ones in the beginning, and the giant ones are on the outside.
Yeah, what sense does that make?
Put it there.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's almost like they were placed on there to protect the inner circles.
Almost. Right. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh, and on a side note, the in the Bible they're called wandering stars. Excuse me.
Yeah. Okay.
So they say, hey, even these wandering stars. So they knew what wandering stars were, because they're stars that didn't just follow the rest of the stars. They moved around. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that word in the Greek is planetos, which is where we get our term planets. Now we know a little bit more about them then, but they knew what they were back then. Right. And they all had names. Like Jupiter was actually the king planet, which is why when they saw Jupiter, the king planet, go through Leo, the constellation, and here's the king of the jungle, and then land in Virgo, the Virgin, and do a retrograde for 9 months and come out, they're like, I think the King of Kings is coming, and he's going to be born of a virgin.
There you go.
And that's that we got the Magi.
Yeah.
And Daniel taught him all that stuff. So the planets have literally 98.1% of the spin of the galaxy or the solar system that we have. So they're just poo-poos your nebular hypothesis right there.
Yeah.
So what they do is they come up with every single thing that they have, and to try and save face is, oh, an asteroid brought it in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And every single one you see, oh, well, Mercury does this. Well, it must have been an asteroid. Venus does it. Oh, it must have been an asteroid. Earth is it. Oh, the moon's an asteroid. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then, that there's supposed to be a planet between us, Mars and Earth, but it blew up. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's why we have the asteroid belt.
Oh.
All right. It's actually right. Mathematically, it's where it's supposed to be. And that is another thing that we're going to talk about here after we get out of this. So remind me of the blowed up planet.
Yeah, okay? The exploding planet. Yeah, I can remind you about that.
Yeah, and there's a couple good explanations for that. So now Laplace, he knew this, but he didn't say anything. Wow. Also, James Jeans is the guy that pointed out that the outer planets are far larger than the inner ones. So Jupiter is 5,750 times as big as Mercury. Well, so why is it so far out? Okay, and then other things. Now I bet you didn't know this one. If it came out, they should all be the same spin rate and the same axis.
Yeah,
as well, right?
Yeah. I did know that. There was a friend of mine that did a service at the church. He said, if this was, a real deal, that they all would be spinning in the same direction, but they're not.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Okay.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, it's crazy. But of course, but that kind of just destroys not creation. That destroys evolution and makes creation really the only option, in my opinion.
Yeah. But an asteroid. So check this out. There's actually pairs of planets that spin at the same rate. Earth and Mars spin at the same. They're like within a few percent. It's very small. I think like 3%. Earth and Mars have the same spin rate. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Jupiter and Saturn, Neptune and Uranus. Mm-hmm. So also, like Earth and Mars have the same tilt. 23.5 degrees.
Okay.
So you got to ask yourself why. And did you know Neptune spins on its side?
No, I did not know. Okay.
So most of them are spinning like this. Right. Neptune spins like this. How'd that happen?
That's just God making a point. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And one of the moons of Mars actually spins backwards. Instead of this, like the sun, the east to west, it goes backwards.
Yeah.
How did that happen? If this nebular hypothesis, so that's wiped out. Yep. Here's let me see. And Pluto is all sorts of weird. It's like
is Pluto a planet again yet?
I don't know.
They disqualified Pluto a few years ago.
And by the Greek word, it should be, because it's a wandering star. Yeah. I guess today's scientists want to put certain criteria on it.
Yeah,
but it's a wandering star. Yeah, I guess asteroids would be that as well too, then, because they're kind of wandering. So you got that. So another thing about if it's that big, they couldn't figure out. Well, if these comets and asteroids are burning up, why are they still here?
Yeah, good question. Do they have an answer for that?
By now?
Yeah.
So what they did is they made up this thing called the Kuiper Belt.
The what?
Called the Kuiper Belt.
Okay.
The Kuiper's like, well, there must be this great big circle of asteroids just waiting out there, and every once in a while one of them comes in and flies through the universe. So they got this storage space they made up. They just made it up, and it's way out
yeah.
there. No one's seen it. They haven't detected it. They don't know what it is. They said, well, the asteroids are coming from somewhere, and we've been here billions of years, so they must come from somewhere. And then here they are.
You know, these people, if they would spend near as much time reading the Bible as they do making up this kind of garbage,
it'd be so easy.
Yeah, it would be so much better. You know, I don't know why people waste their time reading insanity, but you know, people eat it up.
Well, they want to deny God, and
there you go. That's it. Yeah,
and they can't possibly have the design aspect of it. You
Right.
can't have it.
Right.
So we have that, and there's so many different directions I want to go right now, but that's what they made up, this Kuiper belt and all the asteroids. I happen to think it was. There's a number of reasons, and let's go here. We look at the moon, and we look at Mars, and we see something interesting with two things. Number one, the space dust.
Yeah. Okay.
I think now we measured the influx of space dust, and I think it's like 100,000 tons of space dust that the Earth gains every day, something crazy like that. So we know how much space dust there is and how much it comes down. Now, remember when they landed on the moon?
Yeah.
And they put those giant pads on it?
Right. Uh-huh.
Why do you think they put those giant pads on there?
Well, we talked about this before, David. You know, that they were expecting it to be a lot deeper than it turned out to be, which kind of knocked a bunch of scientific hypotheses right out the window, right?
Yep. So they measured that, and so now we got this space dust that doesn't quite add up. So they, must have been an asteroid.
Right. Couldn't have been God. No, it couldn't have been him.
Yeah. Oh, here's another cool thing. When they dropped that thing from the Apollo missions, when they dropped their thing, it hit the moon, and the moon rang like a bell.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like a boom. They can hear it. It's echoing. They thought it was solid, but now they think it's hollow.
Oh,
because of boom. Isn't that cool? I was like, well, we'll find out soon enough.
Yeah.
But that would also answer a lot of questions because they say, if it was hollow, there's a lot of answers that can come from that.
Yeah.
But where I was going is not only the space dust, but all of the craters. They should be on the back side of the moon if they're protecting us from all the comets coming in, right?
Right. Right.
But do you know that most of them are on the front, the part we see?
That's crazy. That's crazy. I didn't know that. I just figured they were all the way around it. That was...
Nope. They're mostly on our side.
Okay.
Mars has the same thing. Okay. Mars, let me see here. I think it's something like... I think it's like some 97%. Like the vast majority, over 90% of the craters are on one side of Mars.
Okay. No, I didn't know that. That is news. Okay.
So still, we'll get into that too. So most of them are on one side, and what that suggests is they all happened within a 30-minute period.
Repeat that and then explain it. 15 minutes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So let me see. Where did it go? I have my. Okay, those are appointed times. We'll figure this out.
Okay.
I lost my notes, but here's the deal.
Okay.
They basically all happened within 30 minutes, which means this was one catastrophic event.
Okay, so instead of all these asteroids and all this stuff, I mean,
over time, and they think, years and years and years.
Yeah, we still see this. Occasionally something hits the Earth. But you're saying that the majority of this happened at the same time. Okay, all right. Can you explain that one a little bit? Why and how we know that and that kind of thing?
Yeah.
I know I'm probably catching you off guard because you said that you
No, it's in here somewhere.
Notes.
Oh, here it is. Found it.
Good. Okay, go ahead.
Why does Mars have 93% of its craters in one hemisphere and only 7% in the other? And it appears that 80% of them occurred within a half hour.
Oh, wow.
80% of them happened in 1.5 hour period. And that would explain the catastrophism.
Yeah.
In other words, there was an event that caused the earth to crack open, right?
Uh-huh. Okay.
And then it also caused this planet between Earth and Mars to get busted up. Okay. It also shot all these asteroids and meteorites out into space because of this catastrophic event.
Okay.
And would answer all of the questions. Why do we have an asteroid belt there? Why are all the pockmarks on one side? Why are they all on one side of the moon? Okay, what's going on? And would answer a lot of questions about, a lot of events in the Bible as well. It just don't want to address these things.
Right.
It happened at one time. And the problem becomes they got these uniformitarianism say, oh, everything happened. Just like 2 Peter says it. Oh, just say everything continues just like it did from the beginning.
Yeah.
That's what he's talking about. People are uniformitarianism, say everything's happened. No. We're catastrophists. There was a flood. That was a big catastrophe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There were events that caused catastrophes that changed everything throughout time.
Okay.
And so things happen and then boom, it changes. Things happen, boom, it changes.
Yeah.
And it's about to happen again. So I would encourage everybody, before this next catastrophic event happens, which is coming very quickly.
Yes, it is.
And that would be the 7-year period where God actually pours his wrath out on the earth.
Right.
But the beauty of it is he takes his bride out before that. Tell them about that, JD.
Oh, absolutely. Of course, and that is the moment that we call the rapture of the church. And that is when Christ comes back for all Christians, living and dead, and gathers them in the clouds with him. And that moment, of course, is called the rapture of the church. And you can be a part of that along with David and I and every other Christian living and dead by simply saying a prayer to the Lord, ask for you. Just let him know that you're a sinner, that you want to repent for your sins in the name of Jesus Christ, and that you know that Jesus died for you on the cross. He spent 3 days in the tomb. He rose again on the third day. He sits at the right hand of the Father, and he's coming back. And in the second half of this show today, David's going to go into more explanation. He's kind of giving me a heads up on what's coming, and you guys are not going to want to miss it. I guarantee you that. So hang on. We'll be right back after a very short break.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Benji Hire with a roundup of the biggest headlines this past week.
This is a scam. This is a rigged trial.
History. Donald Trump becomes the first former or serving US president to be criminally convicted. On Thursday, he was found guilty of attempting to influence the 2016 election by falsifying business records to cover up payments to a porn star in return for her silence about an affair. Mitch McCann was outside the courthouse in New York.
It took the Manhattan jury just over 11 hours to find the former president of the United States guilty on the 34 charges he faced. Trump left the courtroom and rallied against the judge and the entire court process, calling it a disgrace and a rigged trial with a corrupt and conflicted judge.
Current President Joe Biden condemned Donald Trump's attempt to paint his trial as rigged, calling those efforts reckless, dangerous, and irresponsible. He says the conviction reaffirms the American principle that no one is above the law.
Our justice system has endured for nearly 250 years, and we should never allow anyone to tear it down. That's America. That's who we are, and that's who we'll always be, God willing.
The two men are set to face off again at the ballot box in November. Trump, now a felon, can still constitutionally run for the Oval Office, even from behind bars. The judge has set July 11th as the date of sentencing, just days before the Republican Party officially chooses him as its nominee. Donald Trump is expected to appeal the verdict. He faces 3 other criminal trials, pleading not guilty to all charges. Meanwhile, President Biden says Israel has offered Hamas a roadmap proposal for a ceasefire in Gaza and the reconstruction of the war-torn Palestinian territory. On Friday, he outlined a 3-part plan, as Nick Harper explains.
A durable end of the war. That's been the focus, a durable end of this war.
US President Joe Biden says mediators in Qatar have presented Israel's comprehensive proposal to Hamas. Phase 1, made up of a number of conditions, would take place over 6 weeks.
A full and complete ceasefire, a withdrawal of Israeli forces from all populated areas of Gaza, release of a number of hostages, including women, Palestinians, civilians would return to their homes.
Then Phase 2, a permanent end to fighting between Israel and Hamas. And 3, a major reconstruction plan for Gaza. Biden made a direct plea to Israelis who, he says, want to keep fighting for years, instead urging them to take a step back.
It's time for this war to end, for the day after to begin.
On Thursday, Hamas told negotiators they are prepared to reach an agreement if Israel stops its assault.
And that was your week in review.
Hey, folks, welcome back. I'm just wondering if any of you actually found the banana reference in the galaxy behind me. Please let me know, TheHiddenDay@protonmail.com. But JD, we were talking about Mars and cool pockmarks and stuff on it, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm still looking forward to the exploding planet too. But I'll keep reminding you about that every now and then. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, David.
So I'll tell you what I think about the exploding planet. It correlates with other events in the Bible. Okay. But the planet Mars is actually, so it's the fourth one out from the sun, is named after the Roman god of war because they saw a lot of these things happen in relation to Mars and where it was with retrogrades and where it's actually crossing over. It's pretty cool. It is the Baal of the Old Testament, or Baal, actually. So like in 2 Kings, you see Baal all over the place. But the reference to Mars actually is that we even see the god of war now with martial arts and all these different things. Mm-hmm. It's the god of war. So people were terrified when they saw things happen in the star from this red planet named Mars.
Okay.
To them. Now, what most people don't realize is that, we were talking about the uniformitarians and the catastrophists.
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What I'm about to explain would explain the catastrophes that happened and some of the events in the Bible. Okay. So we think, our whole solar system thing, we make them, we're in grammar school, and you have the sun, and then you have the Earth's orbit is here, and then you have Mars's orbit is here, and it's kind of the same all the way around. When in reality, the orbits are elliptical and off center. So what happens is you'll get let's say the Earth's orbit is here. Let's say the sun's over here and the Earth's orbit's a little bit off. Okay, so it's get this elliptic, zoop, zoop, zoop. And Mars actually has the orbit that's on the other side, zoop, zoop,
okay.
zoop. So the orbits cross. Follow me?
Yeah.
So the Mars is not just the same distance from the sun for away from we are. It actually changes much more drastically. And there are times, especially in the past, where the orbits would cross. So think about that. What would happen? And they were in resonance. So originally, which is demonstrable. We don't have time to get into it on the show, but if you're a geek, go look it up. The original calendar was 360 days because that's the orbit of the sun, which is why the Enoch calendar and the biblical prophecy calendars are all 360 days. Okay, you'll find that. And Mars's was 720 days. That's called a resonance. We talked about, remember the spin rates and the angular momentum? They were also in resonance. They were exactly, it was double. Okay. So it was 720 days. And so the uniformitarians, they would just say, that's just the way it's always been for billions of years, yada, yada.
Yeah.
But imagine what happens if they cross and they're really close.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to cause some issues.
Right. Now, think of that in terms of, let's look at the first catastrophic event listed in the Bible. Okay. And that would be the flood.
Right.
Now, if you have these two planets coming close to each other, do you think that gravitational force would wreak some havoc?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it would be effective.
Okay. So here we have the Earth, which is the water, right? And he was on the face of the deep, is primarily water.
Mm-hmm.
So remember in the beginning, we talked about this where, the rakia and the waters under the Earth and the waters above the Earth and all that.
Right.
So here we have this tight planet, and it's got the Earth. Now Mars comes really close, wreaks havoc. The Earth cracks. Explodes open. Now, God spoke because he's the one that set the orbits into motion for the perfect timing anyway.
Right.
So his timing is impeccable. He literally has eternity to work it out. So he's going to work it out.
No doubt.
So now we see the ring of fire, and it looks like the Earth was cracked. Well, that's where the fountains of the deep broke up and then filled the Earth, and then it caused the rakia to melt and basically rain on the Earth for 40 days.
Right.
So we see that catastrophe can certainly happen if Mars and the Earth did a close flyby.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yes, it does. Makes perfect sense.
Okay, now I wasn't there, but that's the only thing that makes sense according to the biblical narrative and according to the things that we know about the resonant orbits. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people don't know that. You remember the Battle of Beth Horon?
I'm not sure.
That's interesting. All right, so you will when I tell you.
Okay.
So Joshua's out fighting all these different kings, right? He's fighting 7 and winds up with, he's fighting 10 and winds up with 7.
Okay.
All right, and then he needs the long day, right?
Right.
See, I knew you knew it. So that's Beth Horon.
Okay.
So he needs a long day.
Okay.
And this is really cool. So he's like, God, I need a long day, and you got to destroy all these people. Well, actually, let's back up and let's go to the flood again. I forgot this part. So now we see the catastrophes happening during the flood.
Right.
So if all that happens and all this chaos and all these things are shooting out, now you're shooting out rocks and everything else into space, and now you got this planet that gets caught in between this fighting, and gravitational forces explode the planet. Okay, because that's why we got an asteroid belt. Where'd it come from?
Okay.
It's exactly where a planet should be as relation to the orbits. Okay, it's all mathematically out. Okay, and you'll see Mercury, Venus, Earth, asteroid belt, Mars. It's exactly where it should be mathematically. So that's what it looks like to me happened. That this planet blew up, and that's why all of those pockmarks are on one side of Mars. Okay, 80% of them within a half hour.
Yeah,
it blew up.
Okay. That makes sense. That actually makes sense. Okay, I'm following.
And then same thing with the moon. When it cracked and blew up, it shot a lot of rocks out into space.
Yeah.
Okay, and they've recently found that some of these materials that they get on meteorites that come back, they're like, this looks like it was taken out of our mountains over here. It's exactly the same composition. They're like, where'd this come from? And they're like, oh, it must be life on other planets. No, it was part of the Earth when it blew up, and it just kind of fell back in the orbit.
Yeah. That explanation is more feasible. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, and here they are, and they burn up when they go through space. So they couldn't have been here for billions of years. They would have burnt up already.
Right.
So that would explain all the pockmarks on one side that happened within that half hour.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Now we have Joshua's long day, Battle of Beth Horon. Okay. And he's like, I need a long day so I can defeat these enemies. So what happens? We get a crossover. And the crossover, let me see. There's actually timing of it. It is March 20th to 21st is actually crossover, and October 25th. Yeah. So it's one of those days, and it happened every, I think, 108 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Near passed by, and it's a hypothesis, but it's a really good one. Yeah. Earth and Mars originally on the resonant orbits. Near pass bys every 108 years, and it would definitely account for the catastrophic events. and then you get the energy transfer. So we see during this battle, the Earth doesn't have to stop per se.
Right.
All you have to do is change the progression of it.
Mm-hmm.
So here it is. Instead of it spinning around like this, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
If Mars comes close to it, it would do this, and it would appear like the orbit switched because it kind of just moved around with
sort of like a magnet or something, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
just like that. So it apparently changed the angle to 5 degrees. Right now we're like 23 and a half. It changed the angle and changed the progression a little bit. Okay. So it wobbled. So it was wobbling. I don't know if it went back or not, but now you can see the next event that happens is you get meteorites, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Isn't that what happened last time? Yeah. So what happened at the Battle of Beth Horon? All these meteorites came down and destroyed all of his enemy.
Yeah.
Now that's pretty good target practice. I say God had his hand in that.
Yeah.
These meteors fall from the sky and kill all the enemy and don't come near you.
God had GPS long before we did. Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then it would account for the long day.
Uh-huh.
It would 100% account for the long day because you're changing the progression, and it went down for a day. But here's another thing. China, at the same time period, has the legend of the long night.
Oh, okay.
Which the night was a night for an entire day.
Sounds like Alaska.
Which would answer the same question.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's at the exact same time. They're like, yeah, it was dark throughout the whole day, and it didn't become day until the next day.
That's remarkable. Yeah. Okay. All right. Now you really got my attention. Okay, go ahead.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
So what this, and it says 701 BC. So what happens here is because of the pass-by, they were so close that it did that, but it also had an energy transfer. With me?
Okay.
So now the energy transfer basically slows down the Earth and speeds up Mars.
Okay.
Because it's like a slingshot effect.
Right. Okay.
So now, instead of 360 days, we wind up with 365 and a quarter days.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is where we're at now. And Mars ends up with 687. So everything is out of whack according to the original resonance. So that's why the prophecies, when you see them, they're all based on 360-day years. Because that's what it was in the beginning. And it wasn't until these catastrophes happened that caused a messing up of the calendar. And it was Mars, the god of war, Baal, who seeks to change the days and times in the calendar.
Yeah. Okay.
So it just all fits the narrative. Here he is changing it all. So now the current Judaic Hebrew calendar is off on a lot of its holy days. And it's much more accurate with the Essene calendar because they just did 364, and every once in a while they add a week to keep the progression of the heptadic structure of sevens
instead of a leap year.
Yeah. So they put a ketubah. Oh man, I forgot the. Basically, at all the solstices, and equinoxes, they put another day. So it's 3 months. Put a day in the middle.
Okay.
3 months of 30 days, put a day in the middle. 3 months of 30 days, put a day in the middle. And that brings them to 364, which was closer. Yeah. And then when it gets out of whack, if it gets too far in one direction, they'll just add a week to shift the days over.
Okay.
Because they need that 7-day cycle.
Okay.
And which is what we talked about before because of the Shabbat. Right. So it changes the Shabbat cycle if you do it any other way. And then, so they know exactly how many they need to answer this, and when it gets out of whack, they just put it back in whack. So their calendar is much more accurate as far as the Moedim, which is the seasons that it says in Genesis, for signs and for seasons. Okay. It's more accurate that way. But he basically, I forgot what I was trying to say. but you know what it is.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I lose my place
here.
all the time. I lose my place all the time.
Well, it's because I'm already down the road. I'm already at now. Let's jump over to the crucifixion.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's do that.
All right. Now we got a similar time period. So imagine this. There's the cross, right? You got a 3-hour eclipse, right?
Right. Okay.
So here's a 3-hour eclipse. The entire earth shakes. Okay. The rocks are cracked in half.
Mm-hmm.
The temple veil's torn in two. Everybody feels it. They even said, surely this must be the Son of God.
Right. Uh-huh. Yeah.
And now it was so dark that they said it's nighttime out here, and they saw the stars. They didn't know what happened. And no one ever really gets to any, you don't learn this stuff in church. They're like, oh yeah, it was great. There's eclipse. There was just an eclipse. Well, eclipses aren't 3 hours. We just went through one.
We just went through one. What was it? 3 minutes long, I think?
Yeah, one nothing.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it maxes out at 7 if you're in the right spot. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's crazy.
And so,
3 hours.
depending on where you're at, they're not that long.
Yeah.
So, clearly, if you have a giant object coming between the Earth and the Sun, and it's 3 hours for the eclipse, and it starts cracking the whole Earth up, and again, every civilization from around the world is talking about, this crazy event that happened. Right. It was dark. The whole Earth everyone said it was dark, and everyone said it was a huge earthquake. It destroyed a lot of stuff. But then people say, Jesus isn't in history. Well, yeah, actually he was.
Yeah.
There's actually more evidence just for the resurrection. Just for the resurrection, there's more evidence than George Washington even existing. He was only 200 years ago. Yeah. Isn't that cool?
Yeah. I had heard that somewhere, but yeah.
Okay. So, and the days too. So we went back to the 360 days. I lost it again. Because we're going back to it'll come back again.
You're doing 360 versus 365 versus 364 and
and 7. Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Okay. In 701 BC, that's what happened, but it's not. It wasn't just the Hebrew calendar.
Okay.
The Jews from Babylon actually did a little different. They put in 7 of 19 years, they add an extra month, and Hezekiah did that. No one could figure out why he did that. Okay. Yeah. So, like something like a third of their years, it's got an extra month in it. Like, it's just anyway.
Yeah.
It's like a little 1 and a little 2. But that's ridiculous to do that.
Yeah,
it is. An extra month. But every single calendar in the world changed in 701 BC. Every single civilization. You look at their calendars, they all had 360 days, and then they all made different types of changes. The Romans added...
What year was that again?
701 BC.
701 BC. Okay.
Yeah. So you can go look that up and check out how the calendars all changed. Every single civilization has a record of their calendars changed on that year. And this is why. Because it changed the progression, and it was an energy transfer in the orbits. And now
we would do the same thing again, I assume. We would do the same thing again if we had one of those catastrophic events, right? Because they're already talking about the Earth is wobbling or something, and things are going to happen. Like a drunkard, the Bible says. Yeah, so I can see everything changing once again.
And it's about to.
Yeah. Okay.
Jesus is going to come back. All right, and he timed everything. Now, I'm going to assume that we have a similar situation because that's what we have. Mm-hmm. Now we have this giant dragon coming from space, and then all the third of the stars fall behind it.
Right.
Well, this is John looking at the stars.
Mm-hmm.
He's on Patmos, and he's looking up, and he said, in the heaven, I saw this.
Yeah.
So he's interpreting the Mazzaroth. And when he sees a third of the stars fall, this is clearly meteorites and asteroids and everything, but then you get these people who say, oh, it just shows you that the stars aren't that far away. Please. Okay. It just looks like it's about a third of the stars. And that word in the Greek is a stare. Okay, that's where we get our word stars. All right. Not everything that is an astare is a burning ball of gas billions of miles away.
Okay.
Because the word means to be strewn. That's why we have wandering astares. Okay. And that's the meteors they called astares too, which is where we get our term asteroids.
Okay. What is a falling star?
A falling star is like just a meteorite that comes in and burns up in the atmosphere. That's why it's shooting stars.
I was just curious because, I used to be able to, out here in the country, we can still see it, but when I was living in the Metroplex area, you could never see one, because there's too many lights, but anyway.
And now there's too many satellites.
Yeah,
maybe who knows? Maybe the satellites are all going to crash, and that's what the burning up is. That could be a third.
That could very well be the case. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out when we get there. Yeah. But it just makes sense if you got this huge thing flying by the Earth and it's got all this space dust behind it. It's gonna look like a third of the stars fell. But again, stars means to be strewn, so it's not necessarily the ones that are even billions of light years away.
Yeah.
So. We're going to see that, and Jesus is going to come back, and he's going to shake everything up, and he's going to put it back to the way it was.
Right.
We're going to, again, in my estimate, I think we're going to see that 360-day year again, because he's going to reset everything.
Okay.
And we're going to see people that live right through the millennium. People are going to live that right through that 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Okay. He says that a baby will die at, baby will die at 100. So in other words, someone dies at 100. Oh, why was he so young? What happened? Right. Well, he was an evil man, so they killed him at 100 years old.
So even though, you'd mentioned once before nobody lived in the olden times more than up to 1,000. It was
correct.
The oldest one was what, 900 and something?
969, Methuselah.
Okay. So it would stand to reason that would be repeated with the millennium reign. Nobody's going to make it through the whole shebang, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, well, they're going to live right through the millennium? Yeah. So if someone is born, let's say, 100 years into the millennium, he's going to live right on through to the end.
Right on to the, okay, cool.
Yeah,
right,
provided he doesn't do evil stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and that's going to be fun. So we'll just have lots of picnics and explain let me tell you about the old world.
Yeah.
Right.
Be glad.
You guys have it good.
Be glad you're here, not back then. Yeah.
We had to walk to school, uphill, in the snow, barefoot, both ways. School, what's that?
Yeah, all right.
So we're starting to see this bigger picture here and how all these things can happen and how the narrative of the book of Revelation can also happen simply by this Mars resonant crossover orbit.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I just never had considered it before. It honestly never crossed my mind before that, Mars or any other planet would do that. So, yeah.
Yep. So it just explains everything in the Bible. Because people will poo-poo, how can he have a long day? It just stopped the sun and the thing. No, the progression of the rotation of the Earth stopped.
Yeah.
All right, and that's because of the gravitational force. Oh, yeah, 3-hour eclipse. How can that happen? Well, again, we got something blocking the sun that's huge.
Yeah.
And it would be about
really big.
50 times. Yes.
Because Mars is a lot bigger than the Earth, right? I mean, a lot bigger?
No, not really. It's a little bit smaller.
Oh, I thought it was
it's
bigger.
Not bigger than the moon, I'll tell you that.
Okay. Yeah, well, yeah. Okay.
Yep. And it would come within like 70,000 miles, I think they said it was. So
wow. Okay, that's close. In space terms, that's close.
Yeah. So we see a lot of things here too. Let me see. We haven't got a whole lot of time left, so let me jump over to the heptadic calendar. Okay. We got a week of days, which is what we talked about before. A week of weeks is a Shavuot. The week of months is a religious year, so you got the 7th month, and you got a week of years is sabbatical years, and then you got the Jubilee. So that's fun. 7 weeks plus 7 weeks of years plus 1 is a Jubilee. And that's when all the land reverts back to its owners. all the slaves go free, all debts are forgiven, and it's called the time of restitution of all things. And this was on Shavuot, which is the Feast of Weeks. That's what Shavuot, so Shabbat really, or Shabu, which is where Daniel gets his weeks from. When he says 70 weeks, 70 Shavuot, basically. So we see and 7 times, and it's also what Jesus talks about when he says 70 times 7. He's talking in prophetic things. It's like Israel was forgiven 70 years times 7. So,
okay.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. It wasn't just willy-nilly. He's like, no, Israel was, they went into exile for those years, and then because they didn't repent, it was times 7 again. Oy, with them. All right. Now in Acts 3:21, he talks about that. I don't want to turn there. We're running out of time, but it says the time of restitution of all things. He's talking about when Jesus comes back. So it'll be on the Shavuot. Now there is Jewish, I guess, folklore, and it's found in the book of 2nd Enoch, where I don't think, they could probably got some cool things in there, but I don't think it's even really prophetic. But this is where they get the idea from. That Enoch was raptured on his birthday. Now, his birthday, if you look it up, is actually Shavuot. So he was born on Pentecost. All right. And the Jews have it in their, religious talkings that he was actually taken up. And the book of Jasher has a horse coming down, talking to hundreds of thousands of people for 6 days. And then on the 7th day, they watched him go up. So that's interesting because that's a picture of the rapture.
It is.
So there are those who would suggest that, well, if Enoch is a picture of the church and he was taken up on his birthday, which was Shavuot, so they're looking on the Feast of Pentecost for all these things, which is just happened to be really close. But I think even more, it was the end of the age of Israel. So would the start of that final 7 years of the age of Israel also be on Shavuot or Pentecost? So that would at least start the tribulation, and maybe we go up a little earlier. So those are the conjectures that are out there. I found them all pretty interesting. But we're kind of running out. So we're done with time.
Why don't you tell everybody about the Bible study in this last minute?
Okay. So here's the deal. We got a last minute left. We did move it to Thursday nights because it's just better for everybody that was on it. So Thursday nights now, and that is at 8 p.m. Eastern. We have an online on Zoom Bible study. It's called a discipleship study. And we talk about all the things that they don't teach you in the mainstream church. And they're fun things. But the better part is we get to have a discussion. So you guys can add all your input and everything there as well. So email me, thehiddenday@protonmail.com, and I'll send you a link for that. You can also find it thehiddenday.com. Either way, and we'll get you a link. So we're just looking for that. And if Shavuot hits and we're out of here before the next show, Lord willing, we'll be back, and we'll see you next time on The Last Christian. JD?
Yeah, you're finishing up perfectly here, and I would just tell people, yes, join the Bible study. I will put a link to that also on The Last Christian site. We'll see you next time. Good night. God bless.
Thanks again for joining us today for The Last Christian Radio Show. And be sure to tune in every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday right here and at www.lastchristian.net. Until the trumpet sounds.
Put a frog in boiling water and it'll jump right out. But put a frog in cool water and slowly heat it up, that frog will boil. As veterans, we tell ourselves the lie that we can handle anything. We let the water boil. You are not a frog. If you or a veteran you know needs support, don't wait. Reach out. Find resources at va.gov/reach. That's va.gov/reach. Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.